Well guys, there we have it. We have now reached the end of this first half of the Championship season as we now head into the World Cup break. But we do have plenty of talking points to discuss today. The Championship went out with a bang, and as always I want to get your guys' thoughts on everything going on in the league at the moment in the comments down below. All of the weekend's games will be discussed throughout today's video, and as always do leave a like if you do go on to enjoy, and do stick around for some regular Championship content. Without any further ado though, let's hop into these matches. Starting out with the Friday night game, and it was Sunderland who left things on a high point, beating Birmingham by 2-1. At times throughout the season so far, Sunderland have probably been a little bit guilty of being a little bit wasteful in front of goal at times, but that certainly wasn't the case in this game. Two really clinical finishes, the first one from Sims and then Diallo in that second half. Brilliant goal on the break. He's got that quality to cut inside onto his left foot, and a really unstoppable one, given how much bend and power he got behind that strike. Credit to Birmingham after that, and in the second half there was plenty of persistence about their play. They had the majority of the ball, plenty of chances, but it just wasn't quite falling for them in the final third. Jutkiewicz obviously got them back into it in the 78th minute, and they carried on knocking on the door until the final whistle went in this one. But credit to Sunderland, some real last-ditch defending to go ahead and keep Birmingham at bay for this one, and it just wouldn't drop quite for the home side in the end. But two clinical finishes on the road was enough for Sunderland to leave things on a high point before the World Cup. At Ashton Gate, there was a real lack of quality in the final third, which was somewhat of a surprise given some of the personnel that each side had on the team sheet going into this one. Bristol City having the better of it in terms of the more clear-cut chances. Watford quite disappointing actually with their attacking output, having finished this game with 2 shots, none of them being on target. From a Bristol City point of view, they did have the better opportunities, a couple decent chances falling to Andy Weimann, but on each occasion it was Daniel Bachmann who was level to both of those attempts. Been quite a frustrating ride for Bristol City up until this point. Watford also with that inconsistency to their game as well, and two sides who I think will look to coach into themselves a little bit more of that consistency over this World Cup break now, where the managers will obviously get that time with the players to work on a few things. Next then to Cardiff up against Sheffield United in what turned out to be a really frustrating afternoon for the home side. That first 45 minutes especially was all Cardiff in terms of their chances going forward, and what has been sort of a story of their season so far. Got into some really good areas, looked like there were some good passages of play for this one, but just a real lack of quality and cutting edge in the final third. Sheffield United didn't really muster up anything of note themselves in that first 45 minutes, but managed to up the tempo ever so slightly in that second half. Baldock with the only goal of the game, slotting in at the near post, and from that point onwards they were able to hold out for all 3 points. Yeah, it's been Cardiff's overruling problem so far this season, and that lack of goals that has fallen for them, and ultimately going into this international break now 19th in the table, just 1 point off that relegation zone. For Sheffield United, good reaction from their defeat in midweek, and top 2 going into the World Cup break. Can't ask for much more than that. We then saw Coventry beating QPR by 2-0. We spoke in the preview how this game could have been seen as a little bit of a sliding doors moment between both sides. Coventry, who had been on an excellent run until this point, and QPR, who just seemed to have run out of steam up until this World Cup break. With them firing a blank in this one, now means they've scored just 1 goal across their last 5 matches, a problem they will need to iron out after the break. But credit to Coventry, they were the side with all the momentum going into this game, and that paid off on the pitch in the end. Callum O'Hare, I thought, really lively performance, did really well for the first goal to show some persistence to actually keep the ball in play. It was a mess from a QPR defensive point of view, but Victor Gyökeres has been that player with that quality in the final third, and I thought that the second goal especially was a real brilliant combination from O'Hare slipping him in, Gyökeres beating that offside trap to go ahead and slot in coolly. Coventry, the position they're in now and the exponential rise they've had from when they were bottom of the league just a few months ago. Dark horses for the playoffs? I don't see why not at the moment. It's a bang open league, especially for that top 6. It will be Huddersfield going into the international break sat at the bottom of the Championship, but another point maybe in the right direction in this one. Bit of a frustrating watch probably for Huddersfield fans. It was Swansea who had the majority of the ball in this one, most of the chances going forward as well, but for Swansea probably equally frustrating that they just couldn't find a way past Lee Nichols. Fair play to the guy, he's been subject to loads of action bearing down on his goal recently, but had an answer to absolutely everything that Swansea threw at him. Swansea just seemed to lose a little bit of tempo as this game went on. Really seemed that belief that they could go on and find that cutting edge just seemed to sort of drip away from them as Huddersfield were as resilient as they were. Now, since Fotheringham has come in, I think we have seen that resilience from Huddersfield at the back, a side that were, shipping goals for fun earlier on in this season. Their problems have been on the flip side of the pitch, really. It's now just 3 goals they've scored across their last 7 matches, and should they get out of this current situation that they are in at the bottom of the table, that's going to be the problem area that Fotheringham and his team are going to need to assess and fix over this World Cup break. Hull up against Reading, bit of a bizarre one this, to be completely honest. Liam Rossini's homecoming in at Hull, his first home game in charge. Things got off to the perfect start with Greaves getting them in front after 9 minutes. Had the perfect opportunity to make it 2 through Regan Slater, but he just fluffed his lines with the goalkeeper out of his box. And then from that point onwards, Hull couldn't quite find that quality to go ahead and kill off this game. Reading got a little bit of a scrappy goal back, and then the second half just seemed like a bit of a non-event, really, between both sides, neither of which looked like they'd have that quality to go on and kill off this game. But then from absolutely nowhere, Reading win that late free kick, long ball goes into the box, and it's Longman who puts it into the back of his own net. From a Reading point of view, I think there's been occasions this season where they probably played better than they had here and ended up losing, but such is the nature of the Championship this season that if you do hang in there, those pieces of fortune will fall for you at time to time, and in the end I suppose that's how they got the win in this one with the late own goal. So credit to Reading's resilience for hanging in there, but bit of a bizarre game all round, really. Next then to Kenilworth Road for Luton, playing out a 1-1 draw with Rotherham. Now, after recording my initial prediction video, I think we all knew the rumblings were sort of in place for Nathan Jones to take that Southampton job. That news has since been confirmed, and it was tough to sort of predict how this Luton group would go on and react from Jones walking away, really. I think every Luton fan probably knew that, with the job and gradual rise that Jones had taken this squad on, when those job opportunities did come up in the Premier League, they were always going to be quite tempting for a manager like Nathan Jones and his profile. But credit to Luton, reacted quite well to going behind really on against this Rotherham side, who have been quite a tricky side on the road so far this season with how they approach games. Really good start from Rotherham, but Luton stuck in there and got rewarded for their persistency in the end with that 90th minute equaliser. I do think that the international break has probably come at a decent time here for Luton, given the managerial situation. They'll now have a little bit more time to go ahead and sound out that next manager and that replacement, as they have this break in play for the World Cup now to properly get in place who it's going to be next in walking through the door. And I do think that Luton is a very attractive football club for, a young, ambitious, up-and-coming coach. With how good they've nailed the recruitment over these last few years, it is a club with an upwards trajectory, and I think that would be very appealing to a lot of young managers. And the revival at Middlesbrough continues under Michael Carrick, as they left things off with all 3 points at Carrow Road, 2-1 away victory at Norwich. It was a decent enough start from Norwich, to be fair, who did have the better of that opening 45 minutes. Nice finish from Josh Sargent to put them 1-0 up. Had other openings in that first half. 2 have gone into that half-time break with a more comfortable lead. But in the second half, there was the feeling that Middlesbrough were going to up the tempo a little bit. And even in that first half, still offered a goal threat. But even more so in that second 45 minutes. Riley McGree with an absolute wonder strike to get Middlesbrough back into this one. He is one of those players in that Borough midfield with that sort of quality and audacity who can hit a ball as well as he did for that equaliser. And then I have to say, it's a really well worked piece of play for that winner that Borough go on to score. Akpom cutting it back across for Crooks to go on and smash it into the back of the net. And I think that sort of sums up where Norwich are at this point in time. It's quite a frustrating outlook and performance, given how there were some good points, some bad points, and ultimately being punished on those towards the end. Good stuff from Middlesbrough though, starting to play much more like the side who we thought we would be getting at the start of the season. And as we enter this second half after the World Cup break, I'm really interested to see what is to come from this side under Michael Carrick, because there have been some really positive indicators so far. Add that to Deepdale 4, Preston 2, Millwall 4, in what was a really bizarre game of football. I said in the preview to this one I didn't fancy there to be all too many goals in it, but in the end we got a 6-goal thriller. Listen, our defending at times was really slack for this one, but I don't want to take anything away from Flemming because he was absolutely fantastic in this game for Millwall. I mentioned a few videos ago that I was quite excited to see him rocking up to Deepdale. You know, I've been quite impressed with him so far this season, but wanted to actually see him in the flesh, and the guy didn't disappoint. I mean, I think it speaks volumes to his performance in this one that, you know, there were sections of the home crowd that were clapping him off after this game. He really was that good. Brilliant goal to kick Millwall off after just 4 minutes. Holds off his man. Ledson, a little bit rash over committing and coming in, but brilliant finish then with that set piece. After that point, Preston, I thought, actually did quite well to go on and turn this around. 2 quite quick fire goals from ourselves, managed to get us back into this one, and I actually thought we started out that second half as the better of the two sides and the side that was looking that little bit more threatening. But as soon as Flemming finished off his hat-trick in the 64th minute, we just seemed to crumble from that point onwards, really. Really poor defending from a set-piece routine meant that Millwall got their 4th goal, and we sort of fell apart after we made those second half substitutions. I do think that that in-game management is something that Lowe can probably go ahead and improve on. But yeah, credit to Millwall, they were unbelievably prolific in this game. They had 4 shots on target and scored from all 4 of them, which speaks to, yeah, how clinical they were in the end. Perfectly executed away win, and for Preston, just didn't quite fall for us in those key moments defensively, despite what was a performance that did have some positives to it. Next up to the Hawthorns for West Brom 2, Stoke City 0. Back to it for West Brom, 3 consecutive wins. That is enough to go ahead and lift them outside of the bottom 3 heading into this international break, and I suppose almost an instant impact there from Carlos Corberán. 3 wins on the bounce, 3 clean sheets in that time as well. Not much more you can go ahead and ask for. This West Brom side were on Stoke from minute 1 from this game, really. Plenty of chances in that first half. In the end, it's Cal Bartley who does nod them in ahead, and then Thomas Asante take a bow because the audacity of that strike in the second half, which sealed this one up for West Brom, was absolutely out of this world. But really quite disappointed actually from Stoke and how little they actually offered to this game in terms of their own attacking output, trying to put West Brom under pressure. Nothing quite fell for them, and in terms of overall passages of play, hurrying this West Brom side, everything we've sort of come to expect from Alex Neil's sides over the years, just don't think that was really apparent and on show for this one. And I think that he has quite a job in his hands to go ahead and turn the ship there past this international break in at Stoke, given how inconsistent it's been there so far this season, and the fact that they're only a couple points above the relegation zone. So West Brom slowly heading in the right direction. For Stoke, still those similar frustrations from managers of years gone by. Next then to the DW for Wigan 2, Blackpool 1. Now, after I'd gone ahead and recorded my prediction videos ahead of the weekend, we had the quite shocking news that Wigan decided to part company with manager Liam Richardson, and so I didn't manage to give my reaction to that one prior to this game happening. Disregarding the result from the weekend for a second, I think it's an absolutely baffling decision that Wigan have made here. Given everything that Richardson had given to that club, had them as the best team in League One last season, was coming into the Championship, having realistically not been adequately backed in the summer to have properly gone and made this Wigan squad, you know, properly competitive at this level, and to have given them all the tools to have been competing at this level. It just feels as if the Wigan owners have hit complete panic stations on the first sign of trouble under Richardson, that first real bad run that he's endured as Wigan manager, and I do think that is a decision which could come back to haunt Wigan come the end of the season. I really do. I think that him as a manager himself won't be all too long before he's snapped up by somebody else. In terms of the game itself, it was a game that Wigan absolutely needed to go ahead and win, albeit I think they were probably massively helped by the circumstances of Blackpool having to play this one with 10 men for the vast majority of it. Ekpiteta with the red card. Blackpool fans, Ekpiteta this season, what have you made of him? For me personally, he was probably, you know, one of the unsung heroes from last season in terms of Championship defenders and how good he actually was. But this season just doesn't quite seem to be that same guy with that composure. There's been quite a few occasions this season actually where he's been caught out, and this was another one of those. Blackpool do go into half-time 1-0 up though, potentially a foul in the build-up to this one, but Gary Medine smashing it in for 1-0. Fair play to Wigan though, there is that reaction in the second half, and goals from McLean and Tilt managed to turn things in favour of the home side. Didn't look like great scenes at the end for Blackpool in terms of the tide does seem to be turning now on Michael Appleton, and I'm a little bit conflicted on it, the situation in at Blackpool at the moment. They are 23rd in the league going into this international break now, which isn't exactly an ideal one to go ahead and sit on, you know, over these next few weeks when Blackpool won't be in action. But my sticking point comes with Appleton, because this season for Blackpool has been a season of real highs and lows so far. At their best, when everyone has been available to Appleton, I get the blueprint, I see what he's trying to do, and Blackpool have been really effective at times in doing that. On the flip side of that though, there have also been some real dismal displays so far this season. Whether that's a case of, you know, Appleton himself needing to take some responsibilities, the injuries they've had to several key positions, or the fact that he wasn't adequately backed in the summer, I think you could probably put a fair bit of blame on each of those circumstances in at the moment. But both these sides will be in the bottom three going into this international break, and I'd be particularly interested to hear from Wigan and Blackpool fans what you've made of these last few weeks. And then to round things off at Turf Moor with Burnley 3, Blackburn 0. It was 2016 the last time these two sides met in the league, and will no doubt be a really tough one for Blackburn fans to go ahead and swallow. The fact that, you know, your most fierce rivals had beaten you by that sort of scoreline, the game was as one-sided as it was, and the fact that there's an international break now for so many weeks and Blackburn fans just won't have the chance to go ahead and get this one out of their system. But on reflection of the full match, I don't think any Rovers fans will have too many complaints about this one really. Burnley were by far and away the better team in this one from minute 1 to 90, and the risk that Blackburn were always going to run with their sort of approach and game plan to this one, you know, looking to play on counters and breaks and, you know, setting up traps for Burnley, when that doesn't quite go to plan and a team like Burnley are as comfortable on the ball as they are, and they can play you around, and they've got different avenues to go ahead and pick you off and score, you are going to run into some difficulties. And in the second half especially, when Burnley did crank up the tempo, Blackburn just couldn't live with that. You know, Kaminsky kept them in it in the first half, and then an Ashley Barnes double and a Aurore finish managed to see Burnley off as 3-0 winners, and the result which sees Burnley going back to the top of the league into this international break. So really positive stuff there from Burnley. Brilliant way to have sort of got back to winning ways and got that Sheffield United defeat out of their system as well. Up until this point in the season, 21 games in, I think they have been the outstanding team in the Championship, and a Derby Day victory like that I think will be a real confidence booster and statement really for the rest of the season and the Championship, that Burnley are here, and they are here to be taken seriously. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and that will wrap it up for the Championship roundups for the time being, until Championship football does return in a few weeks' time. Fear not though, still plenty of content to be coming out on the channel over this international break for the World Cup. Very excited to bring all of that to you guys. If you did go on to enjoy though, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that guys, I'll see you all in the next one.